This week in news, Xbox is shuffling services. Microsoft and Activision's deal is extended. Ubisoft benefits from Microsoft and Activision's deal. And the PlayStation Access controller. Extra, hear all about it. Hey guys, welcome to the podcast that will now take off our hats and remember the fallen. Rest in peace, Xbox Live and Games with Gold. You will be missed. I'm the Dean of Games, and the Dean Slater on all platforms, and joining me today is, from Twitch's Graveyard, Gavin.
I'm just a little bit confused, but okay.
Well, we'll get into it, but, it's a very sad day. Big part of gaming history died. Or is about to die, I guess. It's, but, yeah, we'll get into that.
Damn!
Yeah, it's,
Did you hear that?
I did hear that. It's storming where we're at, and, the storm's pretty bad. Pretty bad. So, how are you doing, Gavin, to get things started? Yeah, I guess for how I'm doing will be part of housekeeping. So you might have noticed we didn't upload a podcast for the last 2 weeks. And there's a reason for that. My life went to shit. It was bad. So it started with, this year, everywhere. It's been record heat everywhere. And we had our AC go out. Had people come out. Turns out it's a leak. And not only is it a leak, the AC is from 1996. So we have to replace it. We have family members that are HVAC, and we managed to get it priced at $6,000. Which is not cheap. Also, it is not technically our house. I've mentioned in previous Let's Plays on this channel, but we were in an agreement with people that were no longer going to be using the house, that they would fund fixing the house, and we would put labor towards fixing the house. They would provide the supplies. We would fix it up with the supplies they provide, and then we'd buy it for what they owe. We've gotten a door and 2 windows replaced. And that's it. They had some medical issues that happened, and during that time they also had a dog that was incontinent, so the flooring pretty much was just destroyed. Everything was soaked in and moldy in the flooring. There had been an issue with a water heater previously and it caused some mold on some drywall. So drywall needed to be replaced. My brother fell through their attic at one point in the garage, and so the drywall in the garage needs to be replaced. There's a bunch going on, right? And it's people that I had a lot of trust in, and so I called them up, and they're like, we can't afford that, and in fact, we can't afford to fix anything else. And you have to buy the house within the next 12 months. Which not only put a lot of extra stress on me because of the down payments and everything, but because now we have to get entirely different loan, because it was going to be an FHA loan, which means it has to be move-in ready. It's not going to be move-in ready. So now we have to look at getting a different loan, which means that the down payment also changes, like the minimum down payment. So now we have to look into that. And then we started looking at places in other states, because the cost of living in this particular state's very high. Actually, surprisingly high. And then my wife's family was getting mad, thinking that we were moving out on them. So now we were getting backlash from her side of the family, thinking that we were abandoning them. And it's just like, man, we're getting it from both sides. At work, I put in for a promotion, and for the third time in the time I've worked there, the 3 years I've worked there, I did not get an interview. And I had even talked to the facility manager about it. I'd been like, hey, I'm interested in this position. And she was like, oh, I see that you put in for it. I'm really excited to talk to you too. Never got talked to. So then I had no place outside the house. And it was just... It really, really got to me. And in fact, there was a day that I was so miserable. It was... I made everyone else around me miserable at work because I couldn't stand it. And so obviously the podcast didn't happen because I was not in a position to do the podcast. I was not in the mental health space or anything like that. So we ended up not doing the podcast then. So, and then last week I was in a better place, but I still wasn't feeling it. So that's why we missed 2 weeks. Sorry for the long rambling explanation. And if you didn't want to know anything about my personal life, sorry for talking about my personal life. Yeah, so, got anything, Gavin?
I'm just chilling, dog.
All right. And with that, this is Extra Extra, your weekly gaming news podcast covering the news leading up to Thursday, July 20... Well, it's not Thursday anymore. Hold on. Hopefully Friday, July 28th, 2023. That's the day we're recording it. I'm hoping I can get everything edited today, and so it comes out. But that's the plan. If you like us, you can go to patreon.com/thebriefing and it's time to get to some news. Xbox is shuffling services. Xbox Live and Games with Gold will be shut down and replaced. Live released back in November of 2002. It was required for online play, and Xbox Live was the first console with online play that modern online play. There were some attempts back in the 90s, which are fascinating if you want to go take a look. Nintendo and Sega each did their own little broadband thing, which is cute little thing that they tried with online. But this was the first with like modern online play. And then Games with Gold started in July of 2013, which had monthly free games you could download. Beginning on September 14th, so slightly after Starfield comes out, these services are to become Xbox Game Pass Core, which will be the same price as Xbox Live, which is $9.99 a month or $60 for a year. It's going to be over 25 games and exclusive deals. Access to multiplayer. That is multiplayer that's not free. So, like, you don't need Live to play Fortnite, for instance, because Fortnite's a free game, so you don't have to pay to play for that. And we're talking like Call of Duty. Since you have to buy Call of Duty, you have to have Live for the Call of Duty multiplayer. They will add new titles 2 to 3 times a year. It's unclear whether they're going to take games off the core service. I would assume they would, but they haven't really said anything about that. And then games previously redeemed will remain in the library. Gavin, for you, I know you haven't really been in the Xbox ecosystem. It was basically like, was it PS Now where you could just redeem games for free, or was that the old PS Plus? I can't remember.
I don't know about used to. You can still get free games on PS Plus.
Well,
Like,
yeah. Yeah, they changed PS Plus a little bit. Now the joke is now it's PS Plus Plus, but like monthly, it's like, oh, you can get these 3 games or whatever for free.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And even if they are paid games, as long as you didn't personally pay for it, it's like you can play for free regardless.
Yeah. So that's what Games with Gold was. And so now that's just becoming Game Pass Core, where you just have the games, but the games you did redeem are going to remain in your library. You don't lose them. The only time I can think of that I actually used Games with Gold, because I don't have time to play games really, so I didn't really have a need to always redeem them. I kind of wish I did now, but too little too late. One game that I do know I redeemed through Games with Gold was the second of the rebooted Tomb Raider series.
Right.
The one in the ice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I redeemed that.
Oh.
But so the launch lineup for this new Game Pass Core will be Among Us, Descenders, Dishonored 2, Doom Eternal, Fable Anniversary, Fallout 4, Fallout 76, Forza Horizon 4, Gears 5, Grounded, Halo 5 Guardians, Halo Wars, Hellblade Senua's Sacrifice, Human Fall Flat, which is a great game. I wanted to get the plat on that, and I never did, because there's one where it's like beat the entire base game in under 3 hours, and I just could not do that. But it's a physics puzzle game. Inside, Ori and the Will of the Wisps, Psychonauts 2, my game of the year for 2021, by the way, State of Decay 2 and Elder Scrolls Online Tamriel Unlimited. I'm sure I flubbed that, but who knows? So that's the list. What do you think?
It's a pretty good list.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There was a Fallout 76. Probably has gotten better, but not great reputation there.
I've heard that's gotten better.
Yeah. So, yeah, like I said, I've been in the Xbox ecosystem myself since the original Xbox. I was in all three ecosystems, and then Sony decided to charge $600 for a fucking PS3, and me and a bunch of my friends just never got a PS3, and then they just kept going with Xbox, so it's like, well, I'll keep going with Xbox too. That's where all my friends are, and now they're on PlayStation, and it's like, oh, okay, well, it's just been a whole thing. But, so I've had Xbox Live for a very long time. And like I said, I redeemed a couple games, not too much, with games with gold. And it's just crazy to me to think Xbox Live has been around since November of 2002. That's crazy. It'll be shut down just before its 21st, no, just before its 22nd anniversary. But yeah, it's sad, but so what I don't quite understand is why. So Game Pass, regular Game Pass, I believe, let's see. Yeah, so Game Pass is, I want to say, like, how much is it? Let's see. Hold on. Okay. Yeah, so just basic Game Pass. It's $9.99 for PC Game Pass, $10.99 for console Game Pass. So if you have a PC, it's literally the same price as this Game Pass core. If you have a console, it is $1 more than Game Pass core. And you have hundreds of games rather than 25 games. The only difference is it doesn't come with the ability to play multiplayer. But I just figure, why not just shut the whole damn thing down and just make it Game Pass? Because then, at that point, you then have, you then just still have the PC base Game Pass, a console-based Game Pass, and then Game Pass Ultimate, which has both PC and console together. I don't know why you wouldn't do that, and then just not worry about it anymore. It's weird that for the same price as basic Game Pass, for the PC at least, and only $1 less than for the console version, you get 25 games instead of hundreds. I just don't understand that aspect of it. But hey, that's just me. I hope that didn't show up, actually. Oops. But that's enough of that. It's time to get to the next story. Before we get to that story, Gavin.
Yes.
What of course I've mentioned before, I listened to Kind of Funny. They had a they had a discussion before their Kind of Funny Games Daily where they were promoting a Patreon thing that they do where they go through and they look at top 10s and they don't really shit on them, but kind of shit on them. It's called the shit list. But basically, yeah, they go through top 10s and they pick the top 10s apart. So they recently came down and did a video on top 10 platformers from a website.
Mm-hmm.
A 2D platform specifically. So what do you think, if you had to guess out of all the games in your knowledge, what this website picked for the number one 2D platformer of all time, what do you think they would choose?
I'm going to assume Mario's one of them.
Yeah, Mario was on there. Do you think Mario was number one, though?
And Mega Man, maybe?
Neither Mario... I mean, Mario was on the list. I don't know if
Metroid?
Mega Man was on the list.
Metroid?
Metroid, maybe. I'm not actually a Patreon supporter because as I mentioned before, I don't have the money to do that.
Right.
But no, fucking Terraria. The number. It's kind of a 2D platformer, but I would consider it more like a Minecraft thing than a platformer thing.
It is, but it's both.
Yeah. I don't picture it as a platformer. I know that there's platforming in it. I just don't picture it as a platformer. I think of it as like a Minecraft-ish game.
True.
They teased that and I was like, what the fuck? What the fuck is that shit? But anyway.
I mean, to be fair, like the crafting aspect of it isn't even necessarily like honestly, the crafting aspect of it that makes it feel like Minecraft isn't even needed in the game. It's just a thing that you can do if you want. But like,
Yeah.
it's more so a 2D platformer than it is a Minecraft-y like sandbox. You can sandbox, but it's not needed to play the game at all.
Yeah. Microsoft and Activision extend. What do they extend, Gavin?
I don't know if I can say that on the podcast.
I'm sure you could, but I wouldn't recommend it because you're a dirty, dirty boy. As we all know, you have a tickle fetish, as we established in the last one.
Excuse me, what the fuck?
I know who started that forum post. I know who created it. Initial agreement had July 18th deadline. Failure would lead Microsoft to having to pay $3 billion to Activision. The new extension deadline is October 18th, and the failure penalty increased to $3.5 billion, which increases again to $4.5 billion if termination is after September 15th.
Huh.
The CMA, which is the Commissions and Market Authority, it's the UK regulator, which is the only regulator left that hasn't said yes to the merger. And now they have egg on their face now that the FTC has lost, because that was the big one that needed to be passed. It increased its deadline for a new Microsoft proposal to August 29th. And to that end, Xbox is considering selling some of its UK cloud gaming rights in order to get approval. Because keep in mind, the CMA said no and rejected the merger on the grounds of cloud gaming. So Microsoft's thinking, if we sell our cloud gaming rights, there's no issue for the UK. And then, as I mentioned, Judge Corley ruled in favor of Microsoft against the FTC in the preliminary injunction, which was then upheld by the FTC and the ill-fated gamers lawsuit. Did you hear about that?
No.
When the FTC lost, or maybe just before the case ended, a bunch of gamers got together and filed another lawsuit against Microsoft and Activision for the merger. And the court's like, get out of this with this shit. You don't have any power. And this leaves CMA as the last regulatory body to not approve the merger, as I mentioned before. So, what do you think of all these deadlines, these penalties, the moving and shaking? I know you're all about this. I know you've been watching Suits, so give me some law.
I'm sorry, I don't know shit about law, bro. I watch it for the drama.
I was thinking about making a joke because, you know, Suits is now being watched by a lot of people, and it ended 5 years ago. So I thought about making a joke about you just now getting into a show that ended so long ago.
Dude, because of TikTok, that happens all the fucking time. Because people post clips of shows and shit, and then like, you know, fuck it, I'll watch it. That's how I get into most of my shows now, because I'll see little bits and pieces of it. And I'm like, fine, I'll watch it. Fine, phone, fine, I will watch it if you will stop fucking. By the way, every time I do start watching one of these shows, I stop getting TikToks for them. So
yeah, I just love it because I'll in stream, just before you get home or whatever, and I'll just be getting some, materials needed for armor upgrades or whatever in Tears of the Kingdom. And I'll just be listening to you watching Suits, and I'm just like, this guy. As far as this whole thing, it's crazy to think. I mean, Microsoft's already throwing a lot of money around, saying we'll buy you for $69 billion, which nice. So they're already throwing around a lot of billions of dollars, which they're not paying to their employees because, hey, they were talking about how they might be laying off more people after laying off an entire fucking NFL stadium full of employees. But that's neither here nor there. It's crazy that there's a billions of dollars penalty for termination, which just goes to show, even when Bobby Kotick loses, Bobby Kotick wins. Motherfucker. Why isn't anyone talking to him about his connection with Epstein? Being into little girls. But yeah, so I guess I shouldn't say being into little girls, even though, there was human trafficking involved. There's nothing to say that they were actually little, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Typically, that's the thing with human trafficking. But, and then I think the CMA, it's saying it's waiting for a proposal, and it's acting all like tough, being like, yeah, they really have to show us something for us to approve. At this point, they're a laughing stock for the world. Like,
Right.
Not nearly as much as the FTC is, because the FTC is also getting their ass handed to them by Amazon. But it's just like they denied it, thinking that at the very least the FTC would also deny it. The FTC didn't deny it because they couldn't prove that they had enough evidence to postpone the deal for them to make a decision. That was what the injunction was for. Was they're saying, hey, we need more time to determine whether or not we need to reject or approve this deal. And then the judge is like, no, you haven't more than enough information, and your case is weak, so bye. So yeah, that's I think that they're acting tough, but I think at the end of the day, they're looking at how every other regulatory body in the world has said yes, and they're the only ones that say no. And it's like I said, it's kind of egg on their face. So I think they're gonna go ahead and approve it. Just eat it. Guess what we're going to be talking about? More Activision Blizzard merger talks. Ubisoft benefits from the Activision Blizzard merger, with Microsoft. This comes from CEO Yves Guillemot, and he said, I think it's good news that the transaction can go through because it's really showing the power of IPs and where the industry is going. So there will be a lot of opportunities, too, in the future for all companies. It's also showing the value of IPs that can be on console and PC, but also mobile and become more worldwide brands. And when we say worldwide, it's really everywhere in the world, and that's a fantastic opportunity. Ubisoft has faced a few takeover attempts over the last decade. And then earlier this year, they canceled 3 unannounced games, expressed their intention to focus on their biggest IPs, if you couldn't tell from him saying IPs like 3 times in a statement, and live services. They are to release mobile games based off of Rainbow Six and The Division this fiscal year. And they have 2 mobile Assassin's Creed games in the works. Gavin, what do you think about Ubisoft and their games and their benefits?
I love how you go to ask me a question the moment I muted myself.
Oh, really? That's hilarious. Gotcha.
Like, I muted myself, walked away, and then it was like, so Gavin, fuck! So, you might hear this. Let's see. By the way, tell me if this sounds like a microwave.
I barely hear it, but it doesn't sound like a microwave, no.
I was on the phone with Mills the other day, and he goes, like, what the fuck are you microwaving right now? I'm not microwaving shit, dog. But, anyways, what was the question again?
What do you think of Ubisoft and their mobile and live service stuff, and them benefiting from the Ubisoft, or not the Ubisoft, the Activision merger?
Well, I don't fucking know, man. I don't understand those types of things. I don't understand things like that. So I don't.
Are you excited
I guess it's
for?
good.
Are you excited for a Rainbow Six and a Division mobile game?
I never cared for those games, anyways.
Mm.
I never cared for those games or mobile games in general. So I don't.
Wow. So what I'm hearing is that you're a video game racist.
I'm not a mobile games person. I just never really liked mobile games.
You don't
That's
know
like
that.
there's a couple. I think there's only like 2 mobile games I've ever really gotten into, and that was like Survivor IO, and I got into that for like a week, and then I don't care about it now. And then like Fallout Shelter, which I was into for a few months, and then it came out on console, so I'm gonna go play it on my console now.
Yeah. So, by the way, you don't know the whole video game racist thing. I'm gonna have to show you that at some point when we have like time. It's 2 hours, so we'd have to like set aside time to watch it. But it is the greatest thing ever. It's a guy that has worked in the video game industry, and even when he's telling the truth, he's lying. And it's he calls himself the creator of the oof sound in Roblox.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. But yeah, so there's a guy on YouTube that did a whole video where he was investigating the whole thing, and so he's like, all right, well, we don't know if he's telling the truth about this, but just for the sake of it, let's look at some of the other things he said, and it's just nothing he claims is true. And even there's one thing in that video. There's one.
You know what that makes me think of for some reason. Have you ever noticed? This is such a side. Like, have you ever noticed that? Like, it seems like people who lie their asses off over every minor detail about themselves or anything they do just have like the best lives.
Yes. No. Absolutely.
But if you're completely honest about all your shit, then like your life just sucks.
That's why I say the good guy never wins. You look at where, you look at the capitalism in this world, you look at the politicians, you look at like this guy, and it's like, yeah.
There's plenty of people who are like 100% honest with lives and all that shit. But like, I'm like, it just seems like, liars and thieves just have like the time of their fucking lives, and I'm just like, what the fuck?
But like, even at one point, he goes, so he claims to have 7 world records, and he can't be lying about that, right? People would know. You can check that. And then he goes, turns out, if it's something that's easy to check, people just don't.
Yeah, because they're like, people would know that because it's so easy to check, so no one ever checks.
Yeah, and so he doesn't actually have 7 world records.
Yeah.
His 7 Guinness plaques are from revisions of the same 3 awards. And those 3 awards, he claims
like there are things that have happened to me or whatever, and people are like, I don't believe that. I'm like, who the fuck would lie about that? And they're like, a lot of people are like, really? I don't. Yeah. And then come to find out, a lot of people would lie about that to gain like sympathy or something. I'm like, I don't understand that.
He had. I know we're on a tangent. We'll get back to news here in a minute. He was talking about the time he met the Dalai Lama and like showed pictures of him with the Dalai Lama, and he's like, "Yeah, it was real great." Well, people are like, "Why does the Dalai Lama look just a tad off in this photo?" Turns out the photos of him with the Dalai Lama are him with a wax statue of the Dalai Lama at a British museum.
For some reason, that makes me think of that joke about the dude that guy named Dave calls it the president. He's like, "Oh, well, you don't know like the Pope," and then he goes like they go and like he's standing up there with the Pope, and it's like I can't believe it. He goes like, yeah, who's that guy standing up there with Dave? What the fuck? That's what it makes me think of.
Oh man! But anyway, we should get back on topic.
Yeah.
It's called. By the way, for the listeners out there that aren't going to be watching with me and Gavin whenever we decide to watch it, it's from H Bomber Guy on YouTube, and it's called. I want to say it's called Oof.wave or something like that.
Wave.
Yeah, it's fucking insane. But anyway, as far as Ubisoft benefiting, I sure hope they benefit. They've, I mentioned in the doc that they've faced a couple takeover attempts over the last decade. What? So, the first one, that's when they were announcing all of these awesome games that we either haven't heard of since or just keep hearing about over and over again, but don't actually see anything. And that was by announcing these games, they brought their stock up high enough that the buyout failed, and they also had help from another company or whatever. But it was, that's when they announced, the, what's it called? The pirate game they're releasing, Skull and Bones. That Beyond Good and Evil 2, that kind of thing. They announced all those games during that time.
Yeah.
And now they've gone back to using the same IPs over and over again. It's Assassin's Creed, it's Just Dance, it's Rainbow Six. Like, they're just going back to what they know is money.
I was super hyped for Beyond Good and Evil 2 as well.
Yeah. I was interested in it. I had never played the original, but I was interested.
Neither had
in the second one.
Neither had I, but I saw that trailer, dude, and I fucking love the trailer. It was dope as fuck.
Yeah, but they haven't talked about that one since, so I don't know if that one's still happening, if I'm being honest. I know the guy that was going to be the director on that game just recently actually passed away.
Right.
But yeah, so they've gone back to Ubisoft's gone back to doing their money making IPs again, and just exclusively doing that. And it's weird because at this point, all of their leaps into doing other things, like what was it? Splitgate was a new IP they had put out recently, something like that. They've been trying to, get on the trends, but they get on the trends too late, and then it hurts them, and then they have to go back, like I said, go back to this, and then fight off buyout attempts and all that. So hopefully they get things on track. But we'll just have to see. Now, the next story I actually have on my phone, not on the dock, and that is PlayStation's Access controller. Have you seen this?
I have not.
That's their access control. So,
what the fuck?
All right. So let me get into this. All right. This is.
Bro, can you imagine pulling up to your homie's house and being
Being like what?
Fuck, and they just start.
Yeah, so this is the release is planned for December 6th. Pre-orders have already started. It is $90 through Sony Direct or select retail partners. This was announced back in January. You use it on a flat surface or horizontally secured to an amps mount or tripod. I didn't look up what amps was. But 2 access controllers and 1 DualSense can actually be paired together as a single controller. Toggle mode allows for buttons to remain pressed even when they are not being pressed. And the number of accessories are included for customization. This is for disabled gamers to be able to play games a little bit easier. That's why it kind of looks. That's kind of why it looks a little silly. To us, it's not really designed for us. So it's for, it's for people that have, limited. I'm not an expert on this, so I apologize for my ignorance, but it's basically for people that have limited motor skills. Like I said, you can set it so that way if you push the button, it stays pushed so you can then enter the next button. Rather than having to do the rapid button presses. But yeah, it's an interesting controller for sure. I've mentioned this before. I'm all about accessibility. Let's get more people into the gaming space. I'm not one of those gatekeepers that are like, no, only true fans can pass. Fuck those guys. We're all standing behind the gate with guns at the back of their heads, ready to welcome you in. But yeah, so like I said, I'm not an expert on this particular side of it. I've talked about my daughter having auditory and visual issues that I have to think about with games with her. But I don't have anyone that necessarily needs this controller in my life. So I won't speak too much into it, but it's just really cool. It's cool that companies are now starting to think about, well, except for Nintendo, are starting to think about how players of all kinds can play their games. Because Xbox and Sony, for the most part, most of their first-party teams are thinking about accessibility. There's been a couple games from both of them that haven't been as accessible as people would like, but for the most part, they're thinking about that actively. And I just think that's really cool. Kudos to them. Have any thoughts on the matter?
Pretty cool.
Yeah. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Excuse me. Well, did you like this episode, Gavin?
Yeah.
Well, if you liked this podcast, or even if you didn't like the podcast, make sure to do all of the things. Like hitting the like button and the subscribe button and the bell at the XofPlays on YouTube, or giving it a high rating on whatever podcast service you use, such as Apple Podcasts and Spotify. I know for a fact those have rating systems. So you can find like-minded people. Whether you hate us, you can find other people that hate us. If you like us, you can find people that like us. And be sure to tell people about the show. Word of mouth is the best way to help us grow. And I brought it up before, but on patreon.com/thebriefingroom, you can financially support the show and get cool rewards as well. That's all from us. Take care.